My name is Markus. I'm working at Zipline on the developer productivity team. And at Zipline, we have a pretty large Rust code base. And if you're working with Rust and Bazel, then you probably will run into a thing called cargo splicing. And today I want to tell you about what cargo splicing is, why it is annoying, and how we try to improve the situation using Lockfiles. But let's start off with a vanilla Rust project. So let's put Bazel aside for a minute. And if you're starting a new Rust project, you probably will use Cargo. Now, Cargo is the build system, package manager tool for everything in the Rust ecosystem. And yeah, if you're starting a new project, then you start defining a cargo.toml file. This contains where your sources are, and you can also use that to pull in third-party dependencies. And the third-party dependencies, you get them from crates.io, which is the PyPy NPM in the Rust ecosystem. And once your project grows, you might want to get a better structure into your project. So you split up your workspace, put in multiple cargo.toml files, and you can also build relative dependencies within your workspace. And as typical for package managers, they are resolving then all your dependencies, and at the very end store the output in a log file. So this is our log file number one, the Cargo.lock. And now let's see how we get that connected into Bazel. So if you're using Rust with Bazel, you probably will use rules Rust, and with that a thing called crates universe, which is a collection of tools that use Cargo to generate Bazel targets. And now you have two ways how you can use Rust and Bazel. There is a thing called from Cargo. So you basically take the entire Cargo workspace as is, including all the cargo.toml files, and connect that with Bazel. And the other thing is from spec. So we get rid of all the cargo.toml files, and we only declare our third-party dependencies in a module.bazel file. Today I want to focus only on the approach, including the cargo.toml files, because keeping them around makes it, Cargo is very essential in the Rust ecosystem, so having a cargo.toml files around gives you maybe some out-of-the-box IDE integration, some tools work out of the box. So there's a small advantage in keeping the cargo.toml files around. But if you're doing that, then you will run to a thing called cargo splicing, and that's the main problem I want to talk about today. Now, what is cargo splicing? So Cargo, or rules Rust, will analyze, again, your entire dependency graph, generate some Bazel targets, resolve all the dependencies, and write the output back into the cargo.lock file. Similar to what Cargo is doing, but a few more things on top required by Bazel. The problem with that approach is it is super slow. So if you have a larger Rust code base with a few hundred or even thousands of cargo.toml files, this can easily run 100 seconds and beyond. And you have to run this quite often, because basically every time one of the cargo.toml files changes, you have to rerun cargo splicing. So it's not really a great developer experience. Now, you have a few solutions to improve that situation. So option number one is you make cargo splicing faster. And since I started looking into this problem, that already happened. There were a few improvements by the community, and we got this around 40% faster for our code base. So that's great, but still not enough. Then a pretty recent approach is rules RS, which is an entire re-implementation of the crates universe, which get away with cargo splicing. That's also great, but you have two small downsides, I would say. It's a pretty recent project, so it does not yet support all the features the crate universe have. And according to BCR, you have to be on the latest Bazel 8.4, so that might not be an option for everyone. So we decided to go for another approach. We wanted to minimize when and how often we need to run cargo splicing. And we try that by, once you run cargo splicing, you also get some output, and this output can be stored in another log file. And we have two options here. So these are our log files number 2 and number 3. We have, so rules Rust itself offers a thing called, they name it the Cargo.bazel.lock.json file, and then we have the module.bazel.lock file itself. Both of them store, from a Rust perspective, the exact same content in a slightly different format, but I did some experiments to compare them, and for a Rust perspective, the output, or what the information they store is the same. So if you're able to have the module.bazel.lock file under version control, you don't need the Cargo.bazel.json file. If for some other reason you cannot store the module.bazel.lock file under version control, the Cargo.lock JSON is still a way to go, at least to reduce cargo splicing. Because now with this second lock file under version control, only the developer changing one of the cargo.toml files, they need to run cargo splicing once, but everyone else reading from that when switching branches, pulling in new changes, they can just make use of the lock file, module.bazel.lock, for instance. But now our problem is still not solved because we've ran into another issue, because the cargo.lock file is an attribute of the from cargo module extension. The SHA of the cargo.lock file is also showing up in the module.bazel.lock file. And if you have a few hundred or thousands of internal dependency, they change very frequently, and with that, the SHA is just a source of merge conflicts. So every second, third PR might change that, so it's not practically usable. So we thought we need to make sure that this file does not change that often to reduce the merge conflicts. And we did that by the frequently changing part are all the internal dependencies. So can we just get rid of the internal dependencies and only keep the third-party dependencies in the cargo.lock file? Because that's the only thing rules Rust actually needs. So we tried that next, and we already have 3 log files, so let's just introduce a 4th log file. And we did that, so we basically took the cargo.lock file, removed all the internal dependency, and renamed our output the cargo.bazel.lock file. This contains only the third-party dependencies, which is what rules Rust actually needs. Now, to again hook that in with the from cargo module extension, we had to introduce another parameter that prevents rules Rust from writing the output back, because it would also restore the internal dependencies. This is kind of now, it was an experimental flag. You probably should not use it. It's more for our experiments to tell rules Rust, I'm making sure I take care about my cargo.lock file on my own. Please don't write it back. Don't keep it up to date. But this was good enough for us to figure out now the third-party only lock file does not change as much as the previous one. So it is no longer a source of merge conflicts, and we can bring back the module.bazel.lock file under version control. But of course, it's not a great developer experience now because we have to make sure our cargo.lock file is up to date, and you need another external tool that removes the internal dependencies for you, so not really great. So I made a PR and to bring that logic back into rules Rust, and that PR was merged yesterday evening, as it often happens with conferences. And now rules Rust offers you the option to say, please write back only the third-party dependencies. So basically, rules Rust will do again cargo splicing, but then before writing back the cargo.lock file, it will remove all the external dependency and just store the third-party dependency. So it's an opt-in feature if you want to try that. And with that, we again get the ability to get back the module.bazel.lock file into version control, and with that, reduce how often we need to run cargo splicing. With that, I want to wrap up because we ended quite far away from where we actually started, so just to repeat that for everyone again. Cargo splicing was the annoying part that we wanted to solve. And want to solve that with storing the output of cargo.splicing in the module.bazel.lock file. But since the cargo.lock file is changing so frequently, and this SHA is part of the module.bazel.lock file, this was a source of merge conflicts. Now, by removing the internal dependencies from the cargo.lock file and only storing third-party dependencies, we reduced that source of merge conflicts in the module.bazel.lock file, which again now allowed us to have that in version control and run cargo splicing less frequently. So it was quite a detour to get there, but now, with the PR landed on the latest main rules Rust, you can try that if you want. And if you want to follow up on the full discussion from where we started, all the decisions we made, I'll refer you to this GitHub issue. And I also recommend you to check out rules.rs, because rules.rs makes cargo splicing itself faster. Our approach reduces how often you need to run cargo splicing. So you can basically combine both and get the best of both worlds. And with that, yeah, thank you all for your attention. And I hope you have fun with, now better fun with Rust. Thanks.